Thanks and welcome back. This is Nathaniel Patterson. You can call me Nate of the Gentleman League, and you're tuned in to Gent Speak, the place where men express their power and freedom over money, relationships, and culture. Today is Saturday, so we're going to discuss spirituality and different aspects of being centered. We call Saturday Centered Day. So I wanted to take a moment to share some of my thoughts on this topic that many people have arguments and conversations over, and it's the battle of spirituality versus religion. Which one came first, which one came second, also which one is the more important, the more prevalent, and for many people, maybe discuss a few things that will help you understand why this argument or conversation has gone on for so many years. Um, One of the elemental points of conflict for people who hold different sides of this argument is the question of which one came first. If you want to say that religion is a way of living life or agreed upon rituals and lifestyle that is based on what God has sent down, then you're likely to have one opinion on which one came first because obviously if God created the universe and God created the heavens and the earth, that if you were to have something that God informed you that you should be doing, that had to come first, and that spirituality is some form of trying to escape having the rules, quote unquote, that religion may have. And then another person may look at it like spirituality comes first because in their mind spirituality is representative of nature, and by being representative of nature it existed before you had edicts or ways, and typically someone who represents that side of the argument would say that religion was formed and created by man. So if religion was formed and created by man and it was agreed upon based on those parameters, and that God had nothing to do with it, then obviously that person would agree with someone who said that spirituality came first. And this may be a yin and yang conversation, meaning it may go on and on forever. But I can say that overall, I think that most of the time, the people who are arguing in these types of um, situations or conversations, both people are right and both people are wrong. And in the respect that you know both people have something that they're right and wrong about, that conversation is always going to have its twists and turns because someone may lean on certain fact-based theories and use that to make their point. Someone else may use more faith-based and they may blend at certain points. So all of this is to kind of let you know that this is a very prevalent conversation, and hopefully you guys can get something out of this conversation with me today. And I just wanted to make sure that I do my best to add something different, something um, refreshing, and something pertinent to the conversation. I don't want to regurgitate the same things that have been said by many people. So, you can let me know in the comment box what you think of the video, and kind of keep me on point. If I say something that you agree with, let me know. If I say something you don't agree with, also let me know. I want to make sure that I understand what people have to say on these topics. It's a conversation that's ongoing. I'm not the person who's going to end the conversation. It's not like when I finish speaking, everyone knows exactly where they fit and they're going to make a decision over which one is right. If I was that strong, then you know someone before me could have done that, and the same thing happened. So what's the reason why I'm doing this video? The reason why I'm doing this video is because I, as a young person growing up, had a very interesting life as a person growing up dealing with spirituality and religion. I grew up Christian. I grew up in a household where Christianity was influenced. We went to church, read the Bible. One thing about me was that I always made sure that I read the Bible for myself. I wasn't the type of kid who would listen to someone tell me something and I would just believe it or take it on face value. Oftentimes, if somebody tells me something, I want to know more or a lot more, and hopefully that will help me understand it myself, and I won't have to rely on being told, because when I understand what something is with facts and true understanding, then I don't have to feel like I'm believing someone. I can really feel like I know it. Similar to going to school, if someone tells you to believe something or tells you that you should know something, then knowing the facts about it, knowing how it works, is the best way. And then after that, you can use that knowledge. But before then, you're just regurgitating what somebody told you, and it may not have as much power behind it because you don't really have that strength of knowledge. Even though there's strength in belief, I always have felt personally, even as a young little kid, that the strength of knowledge is more useful for me. That may have something to do with why my path has been what it was. Um, so getting into it, I'll give my personal opinion, on the case. I do think that spirituality is a very uh, blanket term. Anyone who doesn't want to obey, quote unquote, the rules of any religion or any way of life can always fall under the umbrella of spirituality. Spirituality is not something that has its own rules inherently, so it makes sense that someone who is a little bit more free spirited would want to, stay away from anything that's telling them what to do. So it makes sense that a person who wants to be spiritual is a little bit more free thinking, free moving, and that's similar to what energy does. A person who comes from a life of religion, whether they were born in religion or they choose their religion, they are people who are typically happy with knowing that what they're sharing with other people are agreed upon traditions or rules that have, made people feel good about their life and their belief in the afterlife. So people who like to deal with congregations, who like to attend functions that allow them to relate to other people, that usually gives them that sense that, hey, other people are involved in this, and their strength in numbers. And I think that that's a very important thing to remember, because we as humans are, a society-based, animal. We're based on what we see other people do and what we see working for other people. And with that said, I never want to make a person feel like, oh well, you are, making a bad decision by choosing a religion. I think that it's different things for different people. If you look at each religion as it stands, each one of them has its own theme in a way. Each religion has its own theme in a way, and each one of those themes has a lot to do with the culture that religion was born out of geographically. It also has something to do with what those people feel is the most important aspect of life to become closer to spirituality or closer to God. With Islam, you have a very solid practice and life principles that held the families together over the years that Islam was formed into what we see today. A lot of what you see in the Quran, a lot of what you see practiced by Muslims are things that have been handed down for centuries and for definitely generations. And that is a very important thing to remember, because as life and different issues come across any culture, having a agreed upon principles and lifestyle is something that definitely helps people know what to do. One of the things that I think religion helps people with is knowing what to do in certain situations with certain decisions, and knowing what people have done in the past, and knowing what people have done that worked through those principles and practices. I think is a very good um, religion to kind of share. And with Buddhism, you have the belief in a peace and balance, and also peace and harmony with the nature around us in the universe. A person who is Buddhist can spend a lot of time perfecting a more internally based life and ritual based system, and that will make them feel that much closer to spirituality or divinity in their respect. And I think that that's a very solid way to live because honestly, the way that we do each other in terms of mankind, living in harmony with nature and human beings being part of nature, I think that having that harmony is a very significant thing because that will answer a lot of questions. That will help you make a lot of decisions. You know, whenever you're faced with a crossroad or a decision that you need to make, what would the best decision be? And honestly, the decision that helps bring the most people together, that creates the most harmony, it would be the best answer in my opinion, because that will help people and the situation move forward without there being any more conflict. And that's what I think that the best decision would be. With Christianity, you have humility and forgiveness. You also have, certain principles and traditions that are lived by. But overall, the main thing that a person who believes in Christianity holds down to the core and holds in their heart is that, as long as you are a good person and you ask for forgiveness and you are, more or less not subservient, but you're in obedience with the way that you were told. You follow traditions. Um, that gives the average Christian, I would say, a sense of um, peace in their mind and heart. It gives them that sense that they're doing something right, and I think that that's very important. Also, you never want a person to go through life feeling like they are, you know, life is over. The redemptive quality of humanity is important. You wouldn't want to feel like something that you did at the age of 22 still carries you into the age of 45, and that because there's something you did when you were 22 that was wrong, that your concept of are you a good person, or your concept of are you still worthy, to be shot. And that's not fair. I mean, if you're human, I think that most people can agree that you can turn tomorrow into a new day. Your life isn't over just because you made one decision or something happened that was unfortunate. So Christianity is a very strong religion throughout the world because as the world grows, we're getting to a point where being able to understand and forgive each other is important. And then you also have Judaism. Judaism and Christianity are similar. Obviously, people who study Christianity study the Bible. The Bible has the Old Testament and the New Testament. Judaism is more focused on what is entailed in the Old Testament, or more specifically the first five books, and the different studies that are involved in those books when you have nothing else to incorporate in them. It's very similar to Islam in terms of the solid practice and life principles. And there's a lot of rituals, a lot of study and traditional culture involved in Judaic life. I think that it helps for anyone who is family oriented. There's a strong belief in the family structure and the sense of community. And I think that it's important to remember that each one of these religions, Islam, Buddhism, Christianity, and Judaism, all being the four main or large religions on the planet, outside of Hinduism, which a lot of Indian culture is involved in the big debate between Buddhism and Islam, and we won't get into that too much, but those main religions all have their own set of pros and cons. Some religions have a lot of sects where the religion itself is broken down, and people are able to turn their view of the same religion into something that they may argue over it themselves. But many countries and worlds have fought wars over their disagreement over who was right on these four or more ways of living life and religions. Um, and honestly, I think that it's fine time for us to all realize that if we are going to have a concept of God and God created all things that exist, that we should start to look at it as if God also created those things that we are in disagreement with. Similar to the way that people put the God of their belief and the devil of their belief against each other, it's very difficult for me to understand that because God is the creator of all things. The devil is not the creator of all things. If the devil was the creator of all things, then the devil would be God or be a part of God's plan. But either way, God is the creator of all things. That's an absolute. So if you're telling me that that means that God also created the devil, how could any being of this magnitude create something that's also equal in magnitude to it as it being a creator? I think that there is truth that the force of negativity or the forces of evil versus the forces of positive are always going to be at odds, and that they can be equal in magnitude and nature. But I would also say that the forces of good were created by God, and that that's not God itself. The forces of good are not God itself. So that's the reason why I don't really believe that when people argue that both of them are always correct, um, especially in this conversation. So if you were to ask me, I would tell you that God, the Most High, or whatever name that you want to designate to your belief system. I would say that it's no, there are no opposites. There are no equals, and there are no titles or positions that someone or anything could hold that would share space with that concept. Every aspect of the religions that we know today, the positives that are there are for everybody in humanity to share. I don't really think that there's a problem with having a solid practice and life principles. So a person who is Muslim should have the right to live by those principles. A person who wants harmony within nature, as a Buddhist who may or may not want to bother anyone else or deal with other people, they just may want to be at their temple and study and live in harmony and peace. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. If they want to deal with people, that's also good. But to share that harmony and peace, I think is a very solid, concept. Christianity, I think, is important because humanity needs to have that sense of forgiveness, and people should be more humble and should feel more blessed to share time with people. There's something to learn with all stories. There's no reason to feel like your story or your claim to what the Most High or God is always correct because someone else's claim or story on how they connect with the Most High would also be correct. Um, so I think that one thing that for all religions should be able to include a little bit more is acceptance. And acceptance is something that is very important for any person to have. So any group of people who practice acceptance are going to benefit from it as well. For you as an individual, your personal life is very similar to your physical. Your spiritual life is very similar to your physical in that there may be certain foods that you are allergic to, some foods that you like, some foods that you don't like, even if you're not allergic. And that is something that you'll find in spirituality, or it definitely with religions. There's some things that you'll find that are going to be your cup of tea. Some things you'll see are not your cup of tea. But in all situations, You have to decide what is the best for you and treat it like diet. What do you want to bring into your life and what do you want to subtract from your life? And you are the only person who can make that decision. So making sure that you don't consider that religion and spirituality are at odds is important, because just by having that argument, you are getting outside of harmony. You should start to have conversations with people where you can start viewing the situation or the landscape of that conversation as one of growth. How can we learn something together? What can we benefit from this conversation? If I feel like the most important thing for me to do to feel more spiritual would be to pray on a regular basis to make sure that I am in alignment with my tradition and culture. Also, more in line with peace and nature, because I'm being still and being quiet and listening. If that's what I believe is going to make me a better person today and make my day better, then that's something that I think that I should be able to observe. And similarly, if a person feels like being able to have a testimony to what they have done and how they feel so much better now that they are saved from the consequences of that life, or the things that they have done are now washed away because they have given the chance to reform themselves. I think that if a person wants to have that conversation and say, "Hey, this is what I do, and this is what you do," I don't think that those should be arguments. Those should be conversations where both people learn how to agree and learn what can you do to make your situation better spiritually. So I want to encourage everyone out there to learn something from all stories, from all people, all religions. If you meet someone who has a different religion, don't just use that opportunity as one to argue. Use it as an opportunity to have a conversation, build with that person, find out what they know that you don't know, and give them something as well. And in that respect, you should be able to find a way to agree with certain aspects and have a better relationship between you and that person. And that also may give you a better relationship to another way of thinking and spirituality as a whole. Because the closer that we get to agreeing and less arguing and disagreeing, the more that we can have peace in our own communities. And I think that peace in our own community is something that's important. And I think that a lot of it starts with how we view each other in terms of the religion. So hopefully you guys got something out of this conversation about spirituality versus religion. And if you have anything that you would like to add or comment, please comment below, and I'll definitely respond to comments. And stay tuned for the next edition of Gent Speak. Tomorrow we're going to have Sunday, so we're going to talk about different things related to family and the male representation in the household, and we'll have some fun with that. So stay tuned for the next edition, and we'll see you next time.